Okay, so the home page for AmpGPT is this. Should be easy. Go to my website. Actually, if you go to my website, the home page should have a link here. Except I think I pushed the wrong button. Okay. Okay, yeah. So right here. So you just go to the home page and then right here you can try it out. So this is live, it's free, it's the way it's going to be. There's nothing to worry about in that regard. I'm continuously improving it because it's so easy to do as I get feedback. But this is the main page that covers the idea of things. I'm going to go over this in just 5 minutes. I don't want to do it a lot because there's no need to do it a lot. I just want to give you some ideas. And then I want you to do it and we'll see how it works and you'll give me feedback and see what you learn and see how to use it. So basically, the thing that's important, I call it AmpGPT, but this is not based on Amplio. Amplio is based on the physics of flow, coaching patterns. Okay, it is the Amplio Learning Kata, but that's based on things I learned with Fernando Flores and the Toyota Kata and how people listen, learn, and respond. I have a diagram here, what I call the three dynamics of effective organizational change, which is what do you do? How do you teach people? How do you attend to how people are? You've got to attend to the social context. I'm going to be redrawing this. This is a bit much for one diagram, but you get the idea. And you don't need to know this. It's just that the point is AmpGPT is based on this foundation. Amplio is also based on this foundation. So they're very consistent with each other, but not because one is based on the other, but because they're both based on the same foundation. That's important because there's no like, oh, this is what it is. It's like, well, what works is what it is. And when AmpGPT discovers something new, then I'll just put it in Amplio and vice versa. Now, AmpGPT is not truly anything other than my trained chat GPT. And there was a decision at one point. I had a choice. I could do something like Notebook LM and make a private GPT and share it, or I could just do this public way of doing it. And I will say I chose this way because one of the key things about AmpGPT is to be up to the minute with everything that's known at the time, which means if somebody updates something that's useful, like if Tom Gilb updates a new book, I want it to go into AmpGPT. Well, if it was a private GPT, that wouldn't happen, but being a public GPT, it does. And it knows not to attend to things that aren't consistent with the axioms and the, I guess you could say the belief system, but the belief system is basically we attend to this stuff. Okay. The physics of flow is not an opinion. It's a combination of theory, constraint, lean. Also, I could put Evo in here, but he doesn't talk, Gil doesn't talk so much about physics of flow, but a lot of his stuff's in here. So you really could just start talking to it. You don't need to know anything more than that. The way it gets started is real easy. You copy and paste. You go to ChatGPT, you copy this. So if I go to ChatGPT, well, here, this is mine. So it remembers, I could just put that in here. And now you're in AmpGPT. You're still in ChatGPT. It's just operating as if you were in my trained GPT. Okay, it knows to do that. Ed and I came up with this track. Okay. Now there's an advantage to that, which means your thread is private to you. So it's totally anonymous. You're not in a system that I'm doing it. I can't see your thread unless you share it, which you could do. In fact, it may not be a bad idea to have a shared thread, but there are reasons why that's actually a little more complicated. So it's better you just do it on your own. Okay. So there are basically 6 different things you can do, but they're not really modes. They look like modes, but it's just, well, you can ask questions, explore ideas, get guidance on how to coach, practice coaching sessions, which is pretty cool, diagnose, solve real problems, learn concepts through guided interaction. And I'm going to be adding a demonstrate and strengthen your capability. I'm not going to go over all these now. But some of this is structured. Like if you go here and you tell it a problem, it really has a process. And this is something to pay attention to. Well, I'm not trying to teach you this process. It uses this because we found this is a good pattern. But part of AmpGPT is for people to kind of use it, see how it's doing, and it creates maybe a roadmap for you. You don't have to. but we find that using it more this way starts getting your thinking. I'm a much more structured thinker out of using this over the last year. Last thing, I'll take questions and then we'll start. I'll give you a little history of this. So ironically, the start of this was about a year ago when I was talking to one of my sons as an adult. He's in the IT area. He's a data scientist. And we were talking about ChatGPT, and I told it how I was using it to do some writing and all that. And then he made this offhand comment to me. He said, "Oh, well, you should ask it if there was anything else you missed, not just write it better." But I said, "Oh, that makes sense." So what I started doing when I was talking to ChatGPT about a year ago is I would talk to it and then I would ask it if there was something else. And then I started expanding it. It was like every week or so, I would just go a little further. So, well, here's what I believe. What do you think about that? I started with actually before that telling it, talk to me like a scientist would talk to me, like two peers working on something, not personality wise, but always talking about the work. That was actually my starting point. So it's not intended to be nice. It's intended to be like a peer. So this scientific approach is what I've done. And then every few weeks, I would get some other idea and I'd say, "Hey, could you do this?" And then sometimes it would say yes, and sometimes it would say no, but we could accomplish it this way. And then in the last 2 or 3 weeks, this training at it. So I've had it trained in these core things for about, I don't know, about 9 months. But in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I realized I could do all this in interacting. So this is a working system as it is. I wouldn't call it a beta, but I would call it a first release. I say it's not a beta because I think its results are really good. It's a first release because I'm continuously updating it. I've already had 2 or 3 updates. I don't track the updates. They go in live. I just talk to it. They say, "Hey, somebody got this idea. It seems like a good idea. What do you think?" And then we come up with an agreement. And that's just, okay, from this point on, that's how I'll talk to people. It takes 5 minutes. So here's what I'd like y'all to do. Well, questions first. So let's get questions and then we'll get started. Any questions? Okay.
Al, are there just briefly, is there like an ideal scenario where you see this being utilized, sort of a use case or two, just so I can kind of anchor on that a bit?
Okay. Thank you for that question. The answer is no. That's why I didn't think about it, but I need to say that. No, this is what AmpGPT, how you should view AmpGPT. If you had an expert available to you, how would you interact with that person? That's the scenario. I don't care. Now, it's not trained in everything. It's trained in product development and service orientation, adding business value. So if you just want to talk to somebody, so these are, I guess you could say, scenarios. Oh, I kind of like that word better than modes. Uh, so I would, yeah, actually, that's great. I like these as scenarios. So one scenario is you just want to talk to somebody to explore ideas or to say, "Hey, how would I solve this problem?" That's one scenario. Another scenario is say, "Okay, great. I know what I want to do. How would you suggest me coaching somebody in doing this?" That would be another scenario. Or you could say, "That makes sense, but I'm not a good coach. I haven't had much coaching experience. Can you interact with me in a way that we can practice?" See, like if I go here, I could role play. So there are 3 roles in the role play. There's the character, the person that's being coached. So I could play that, or AmpGPT could play that. Then I play the opposite one. There's a scenario it's in, and then there's the observing mentor. AmpGPT can act and give you feedback in real time or at the end. So yeah, I hadn't thought about these as scenarios, but I think I like scenario better than mode. So I'll fix that once you guys get started. Uh, then there's, well, I got this problem and I don't know what to do with it. I mean, what do I do with it? Now, the reason we put this after the coaching session is part of the diagnosis and solving real problems. This is the template it sort of goes from, but it doesn't follow it exactly. It follows it appropriately. So it'll ask you about your problem to make sure it understands. It'll restate the problem so you know it knows. And then it'll explain maybe what's causing it. It'll introduce distinctions that would be helpful. Notice what to observe. where to introduce the conversation. So maybe you have to wait for a retro. Maybe you do one-on-one, different experiments, small changes, perspective shift, coaching pattern. So the coaching pattern it's referring to here is either this or this. And then this is what started it, was this realization it can do this. Yeah, this is actually worth saying because this ties these two together. Okay, I'll be candid. What started a lot of this? I'm so sometimes irritated with the poor certification exams. I'm not against certification. Sometimes people think I'm against certification. I'm not. At one time, it's lapsed, but at one time I was a certified Red Cross life, um, lifeguard. And that certification was meaningful. It wasn't just a book. We had a booklet that told us all the things we needed to do. And the booklet told us how you're supposed to be a senior lifeguard. But that wasn't the test. The test was not on the book. The test was being thrown into, not being thrown, but having somebody who's in an Olympic-sized swimming pool in the middle of it pretend he's drowning and acting as a drowning person. And the test is, do you get him to the side of the pool before he drowns you? Because that's what drowning people do, is they grab onto you and push you up, down so they can get up. And these guys were usually much bigger than me. In college, I was about 145 pounds. These guys were 185 pounds, very muscular. I was athletic, but not muscular. And you pass the test by getting them to the side. I think you're given 2 shots at it. I did it on my first shot. That certification of capability. So multiple choice exams are ridiculous. So I was going to get a better multiple choice and have it for free, and you get certified in Scrum and all that crap. So then somehow I got the idea, can you do an essay test? See, because essays are better. Everybody knows that, but they're hard to grade. They're expensive. But AI is cheap. I can pay for the electrons it costs. The electricity bill is not that bad here. So anyway, the real electricity is back at the server, not on my machine. So I started talking to it about essays, using essay questions. And what struck me, I wasn't surprised that it could do it. I was surprised that when I did it, it would tell me what I got right, what I got wrong, what I missed. And then it would ask me, do you want to learn more? And what I found was that if I was supposed to be here, but I was here, it could guide me from this point to this point using the Kata learning approach that I had built based on Fernando's work, Fernando Flores, consistent with the Toyota Kata. That's what this is. And then later I got the idea. Well, wait a moment. Capability is, if you go from here, is that now you can converse with an expert. See, better capability certification would be you can talk to an expert and that person says, yep, you understand this, go for it. Now, I haven't activated this yet, but that's going to happen in the next week or two. So these are all the different scenarios, except they're not really scenarios. I mean, they're not really like modes. You can intermix them. And this was something you might try doing. In other words, you could discuss a problem, ask for guidance on how to coach people, and then role play and then learn more depth about the topic. So there's really any learning scenario, it should be able to work in any learning scenario, but these are the main ones that seem to occur to people. Does that make sense? Is there another one that it would be good for? Because I could just tell it to do that and it would. Or did I miss something, or does this seem reasonably complete? That was to Kurt or Rick. I forgot who asked me the question.
That
Okay, or
I,
Tony, you comment.
just a quick one. I've seen this at some interviewer does this at the end of the interview. He asks, "Are there any questions we should have asked you?"
Yeah. Yeah, now
That
this
we
actually, I'm glad you said that because this actually brings up some,
just
I'm sorry, keep going, and then I'll say this last
no,
one.
that's it. It's like,
Yeah.
did I miss anything?
Okay,
I
so
mean,
here's
should I
something
have
I'd
asked
like you to
anything?
attend to while you do this. So I got some feedback. Somebody said, I posted something, he said, oh, that's great, but you left out the value proposition to ask. It was like one answer on work in process, and he was expanding the question. I thought, well, that's good. You're right. So then I had a conversation with ChatGPT about maybe you should, when it seems appropriate, ask if they want some more information about this side topic. Okay. So it started doing that from this morning. So guess what? Somebody saw that and said, it's irritating. Now, I wasn't surprised about this because it had already occurred to me that perhaps ChatGPT needs to be tuned to the level of friendliness and helpfulness you want. Maybe some people like, just answer my question and shut up, then, or just keep giving me advice. So I haven't done this yet, but tomorrow I'm going to get on with ChatGPT. And what I want feedback from y'all today is notice if you would like it to interact with you in a different way, be more helpful, be less helpful, give you more prompts, give you less prompts. And then what I can do is talk to it. And maybe when you start, it can say, hey, I have different ways to work. Tell me how you want me to work. And it'll give you some choices, but you don't even need to take my choices. You can just tell it how you want it to work. In other words, if you wanted to give a lot of suggestions, just say, oh, by the way, please give me lots of suggestions after you get it started, or don't tell me suggestions, just answer my questions. You see what I mean? Like it'll pick up just like that. That actually is maybe more exciting than the fact that it's scored high so far with people. The fact that it can learn so fast. And the reason it can learn fast, well, it's not true. I was about to say something that's not quite true. It can learn fast because it's a powerful LLM, but the reason it can learn fast in the right direction is because the foundation is all laid. And this is the foundation. It's not just what you need training on. It's not just how you train people, how people are. It's not just on how people are as human beings. And it's not just attending to the whole context of the business. All of this is what I spent most of the time that I've been working on it for the last year. This it understands. And it knows to ignore those bodies of knowledge that contradict this. And it knows to question me if I've gone outside the range of what looks to be right. Okay. So any other questions? That was a bit more getting a little more in the theory, but this is good. Let me say one other thing that might be a better scenario. Who do I expect to use this? Might be another question. I expect it, and I haven't written this up, but I've been giving thought to this. There are 3 levels that I expect this to be used. I'll start from the bottom level, the practitioner who just wants to get his job done. The practitioner just wants to get his job done would probably stay in the ask questions and explore. I'm having troubles here. What do I do? Fine. Then there are internal coaches or transition agents, and then I would expect them to do all of this. By the way, there's no limit here. Safe, Scrum, doing it yourself doesn't matter. Why? Because it's based on a foundation that can help any approach. So this is not just for Amplio. This will work anywhere, and you can test me on that. One of the things I gave it is, in fact, I think I have, here it is. So I had a conversation with it about recovering stalled safe transformations, and I talked about this, and this is basically its response to me about how you can use this to improve safe and stuff. So practitioners can use it. Oh, I'm in safe, and we had a PI event, and I've been overloaded, and what can I do? So practitioners can do that. Coaches internal could do that. And the third one is for those people who are in my ACE learning journey. And I'm still making the business case for this, but I'm going to write it up. I can see that people who do understand Amplio and understand this at a deeper level of what's based on, not just, I mean, you could get the answers, but you might want to have PowerPoints. You might want to have the overview and outlines and things like that. Kind of like this is a nice little, like more information on the steps to make change. I think that what I would suggest is if an ACE could go into an organization, give them some high-level coaching as an experienced coach, and then use AmpGPT to help train the transition agents and internal coaches, and then use it to help the practitioners. You've got a high leverage continuous education model that's real time. and costs absolutely nothing. That's to me the vision of this. This leverages me with my aces, with everybody else out there. Okay, long answer, but I'm pretty passionate about this idea. Okay, any other questions? Well, then here's what I want. Let's, for the next half hour, well, let's do it 10 minutes. Let's do it 10 minutes just to get feedback to make sure we're all doing okay. And then we'll go longer on that. Go to this page here. You should be able to find it, but I'll put it in the chat. Go to this page and let's get started. And the way you get started is you go to your ChatGPT. This is just, I'm going to go to the link. All this does is it goes to ChatGPT. Now I'm signed in, so I have all this stuff. If you have a ChatGPT account, log in, because then it will remember your conversation and it will get stronger as you talk to it. But you don't need your own account. The other advantage of having your own account is that for the start of every thread you have to take this, copy, and paste it, and put it here, and then say this. And now it's going to be in AmpGPT mode, okay? And it gives you a little bit of background and all this. Oh yeah, you don't need to read all this, but that's right. I forgot I told it to do this. Sorry. What it's doing is it's telling you the basis, the beginning basis of how to talk and all that. There's a lot more you can get. That's it. Go for it. Start doing it, using it. Give me feedback, ask questions. I'm going to be here listening to you, and I'll put a timer.
So
yeah,
we can ask any question
anything you want. Push the
on
envelope.
on the product development. Okay.
I don't care. It doesn't have to be just product development. If it has to do with adding value, it should be relevant.
Okay.
I don't
Al,
care
where
what, I don't
where
care
where
what, just a second. I don't care what domain it's in. Now, this is a broad statement, and some of you will probably go beyond its capability if you get outside of product development or service delivery. But the reason I'm actually optimistic about what happens when you go outside of there, these things apply everywhere. These are absolute universal principle. People are people, regardless of what they're doing. People have cognitive bias, regardless of what they're doing. It will be more useful because it could talk about the physics of flow if it has something to do with a value stream in it. But other than that, it should still be useful. So somebody else was going to ask me something. Yeah, just ask it questions. Ask big questions. Don't put a limit on it. That's been my biggest surprise, to be candid. When I asked some people to try things, they asked questions I never really would have thought anybody would have asked. So we're much deeper and harder. And yet it did brilliantly. So I was like, oh, this is cool. So just go for it. And if it doesn't give you a good answer, what I really need is if you're not getting good answers, if you think it should go deeper, if it doesn't agree with if you disagree with it. Now, if you disagree with it, you should talk to it. Hey, I don't agree with that. Tell me what's up. You know what I'm saying? Interact with it. Okay. Was there another question? I thought somebody was, okay, I'm going to start this timer here. And I'm live. You guys just do what you do, but ask questions, comment live or using the chat. Keep the chat open. And if people don't want to be bothered, they can shut the volume off. It's easy. And just talk. You don't need to raise your hand or anything. I might not see you.
Al, this is Rick. I got a question for you.
Yeah, please.
Are you able to track usage in here? Like,
No, because it's your chat GPT and I can't see your chat GPT. I have no idea what you're doing.
oh, okay.
This was another reason I did this. People might want to talk about confidential things. I have no access to it. This
Yeah.
is your own chat GPT thread. This took some time to figure out how to do this.
Yeah, no, this is a cool tool.
Yeah, now there's a reason we did this. I'm not sure I said. See, if I made it private, then if somebody outside of me updated it, I wouldn't get access to it unless I updated it. So it was a big maintenance issue. Now there's no maintenance. Yes, easy.
It didn't the first message that you got that talks about physics of flow. I didn't get that initial message, although I did get the fact
You
that I
don't.
will be.
Okay, did
I don't need to
you?
write.
You don't need
What he
to.
said to me was like, understood. I'll engage in an Amplio GPT style
Yeah, that's
mode.
all. That's all. I don't know why I
Okay.
didn't give that to you, but that was just kind of. I don't know why I did it to me and not to others. Did anybody else not get that? Here's what I got when I joined it. Or no, which one did I get? Yeah. So I got this.
Yeah.
You didn't get this. Okay, well, I don't know why you didn't. That's interesting. I'm not sure this is a good idea, to be candid. I think it should say, good, I'll engage
So I
you.
got that first two lines. Engage in an Amplio
Yeah, but then you didn't
GPT.
get this.
Yeah, everything under
Okay.
no diagnosis.
Okay,
I didn't get that.
that's it's still engaging with you the same as anybody else. Now, what I think would be better is that it should say something like this: do you want to see? So I'm going to change it. Ask if you want to see the axioms and etc. So that's see
Can
this
you
is I think that would
put
be
that on the chat?
more friendly to do it that way. But yeah, go ahead, use it. I don't think that'll make any difference.
So sorry, come again. We ask if what?
No. I was saying it should ask you. I'm going to change this.
Oh, okay.
See, this is why I'm looking for feedback, is because when I look at this, I say, whoa, I just started this and it's giving me this huge amount. That could be confusing to people. So I think a better UX would be that it says I'll engage as Amplio, et cetera, et cetera. Do you want to see
Yeah.
you want to see what I'm basing this on? And then you say yes or no.
Yeah.
If you say no, then just
So the first two lines are consistent
yes,
apart
that's
from the
what's
other
important.
options.
Yeah, that's what's
Yeah.
important.
Okay.
Yeah. But this is why I need to see it in use because I can't see it when you use it. That's why I wanted to have this session and people telling me. And I have been talking to some of my associates. See, that's when I realized I needed to put this. This is new. I just put this in this morning because I realized, well, I don't believe in boundaries, so I try shit, but not everybody will do that. So it's good to let them know. Go give another 5 minutes of playing with it. Yeah, you go deeper if you want, or just change different topics. Yeah, and Abizi, I know what you know from the past, some of the what you do. It would be great to talk to it about that stuff because even though I've never talked to it about that, it'd be interesting if it can make that transfer into those types of services. Oh, here's I forgot I did this I saw this TBD, but I did the TBD, but I didn't take it out. Okay, 2 minutes, then we'll take a break.
Hello, Al.
Yeah, please, busy.
I am not seeing images.
Uh,
Is it?
well, it usually doesn't
Because,
give you images unless you ask for images.
okay.
Now, if you
So
want an image, you can
I can
ask
say
for it.
with images. Like take I want to learn about how to be an effective coach with images, something like that, right?
Yeah, just tell it to do it. Now, Chat
Okay,
GPT's
let
biggest
me
weakness in my mind is creating images, but sometimes it does pretty well, at least conceptually. So go ahead and ask for it. That also takes 30 seconds to a minute and a half typically to get them. But go for it. Yeah, that's interesting. And appreciate you trying something new. This is what I want to talk more about to use it. It gives me another interesting idea that I might have a collection of images it can pull from. Okay, 1 minute.
Hey Al, this is Rick.
Yeah, yeah, right.
I added a prompt in the chat.
Oh, I didn't
Um,
see it.
yep. If anybody wants to try it out, there's a lot of good information in there.
Oh, interesting. That's great. Yeah, this is useful because see then these are the ideas that then some of the, oops, okay, shut up. Uh, okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna put that in here. That's great. See, this is like these are some of the prompts that would be good to oops, I did that twice. Okay. So we'll see what it does. Okay, actually, you've hit some other idea here that I'm going to do. Um, I got this idea, and here's a link. I didn't tell what it was. See, here I've got where I want to have feedback on how things work. And what I got an idea this morning. So I've created this workbook. It's just on Google Docs. And what I'm going to be doing is starting to add things in here. And one of the things I could add is some of these prompts that are useful to get information. And the way this happened was I had this session. This is a recording of a session I had, I don't know, a few days ago, and all this. And then I posted this. And then somebody said, well, that's good, but it doesn't talk about value and this and that. So I had a conversation with AmpGPT about when it should talk about adding value and all that. And then I asked the same question and I got this response, which was much more deeper, much more advanced, a lot better. And then I got the idea, well, we need to have choices on how to do things. So what I'm going to use this book for is this just be like a notebook, journal, user notes. And we could put ideas what you just had. I just started this, but you've just given me that really good idea that this would be a good prompt question saying, tell me about the Amplio, whatever. And in fact, I could even put these things in here so people can just read it if they want to. Okay, so how did you find things? And we can share your screen if you want. What was your general impression? Just somebody who wants to talk about what worked, what didn't work, what you wish it did, what you wish it didn't do. Um, I need feedback. Is it useful? Is it not useful? And for who would it be useful and who would it not be useful? That's another good one. It might be good for you, but it might not be good for other people.
Okay, I'll start.
Please,
Hey,
Thomas.
So I used your prompt and then a description of a scenario that I had a long time ago, working in a company that was very hardware centric. And I was charged and tasked with building a group of software engineers to develop software that differentiated that hardware. Case in point, it was high-speed printers that cost about $1 million, and the software on modern workstations and servers cost in the order of 50,000. And so the company was organized in such a way that the salespeople and the service organization, all they saw and had in their head was selling more of the big boxes, right? Because I'd rather sell $1 million printer and get my sales commission than deal with 10 or 20 small software sales. And as a result of that, of the company, the system, and the sales incentives, um, gave away the software for free just as an enabler to move more big boxes. Yet the differentiation and competitive advantage was more and more on the software side. And so it was very difficult to change the system such that it would see, okay, we need to look at what the constraints are here and where the value comes from and so on. And that's the description that I gave the system, the AmpGPT. And it gave a very sort of lengthy expose on, well, what you're dealing with is a classic case of a local optimization trap, and you have a constraint that has moved somewhere else, and you can look at it from a flow perspective or from Don Reinertson's Q and cost of delay perspective. And so it was an interesting list of sort of both theoretic approaches, cost of delay calculations and queuing and flow theory, but also peppered with practical insight, as I asked it, what would you recommend to a coach that comes into such a scenario on how to change the system? And so it gave a lot of example questions that the coach could ask the company or the executives to make these contradictions or these challenges visible. And again, I sort of come away from this with the somewhat sentimental realization. I wish I had such a tool like 20 years ago, right? That would have been super valuable to better understand and better influence how to change a system.
Yeah, see, this is what you're describing is something that I still kind of am astounded that is mostly ignored. That just knowing what to do here is not that useful if you don't know how to do this, and you can't do this unless you understand cognitive dynamics. It also is kind of reminiscent of hardware in the military, although there it's even more extreme because the software people are kind of deemed as being worthless by the hardware people. I mean, I've worked in the military and that's just the way it is. Now, let's see. So I saw that comment by Rick. Um, yeah. So so this is a good point. So see, he could ask that, or I could get Amplio GPT. In fact, I was talking about it with this morning, and I said, well, it and me decided that we didn't want to do it as a rote. It's not like every time you want to ask, move upstream, because that may or may not be pertinent. Depends on the role of the coach and what they're looking at. But I believe it should at least ask what upstream effects need to be looked at. See, now here's an interesting thing. If you ask this, let me give you a couple of good prompts, because this is something that I think some of this prompting is good. So see, a lot of people say should ask upstream. Now, one thing I know, and I'm not sure if it knows this. No, I'm sure it knows I know this. See, one thing I've learned is if you ask upstream, a lot of people don't do that. Why? Because they don't think they can influence the upstream. Well, you can. The way you can always influence the upstream is if you make it clear what the impact upstream is having on you. And there's a way to do this, because if you make it look like blame and I'm not responsible, you're messing it up, that's a good way to get fired, or at least we used to talk about at Net Objectives. This is a CLM, a career limiting move. But one of the powers of lean is Lean talks about visual controls where you just make it visible in your value stream. So you don't talk about upstream people, you can just show it in the value stream and people can see impacts of other parts of the value stream. Now that's something I've learned, and I that's something that perhaps AmpGPT should prompt. And again, there are lots of prompts. So what I think would be good is for it to figure out what are the potential prompts and then ask you, do you want me to do this? And then you just say whether you want prompts or not prompts. See, but here's what's cool. These improvements can make a significant difference in how it's used, but it's not changing the model. Its understanding is solid. If you ask it, it'll give you a good answer, apparently. I say apparently because it hasn't been in use enough, but so far it's like 10 out of 10. Okay, other comments, especially if something went wrong or wasn't clear. And don't be afraid to embarrass me. If it, oh, this is horrible. This was very confusing. I mean, that's what I need to hear. Like I wrote a post on this morning.
Maybe just one final
Yeah, please.
input on my example. What I liked is that it didn't just give me answers, but it suggested more questions or very pointed questions to ask if you gave it the direction, assume that I'm a coach coming into this situation, or I'm a manager or a product manager or something. What are the questions that you would ask decision makers or executives? And so I posted two of those that it ended each of the prompts, and so it definitely gives you some suggestions as to how you can analyze the situation. Again, both from a theory perspective, queuing theory and constraints, theory of constraints, etc. But also from a sort of human psychology. It says don't attack the salespeople or something like that, right? So, but make it such that they can see the contradiction or the bottleneck they can discover it on their own.
Yeah.
And ask questions that make them think and discover what you want to tell them, right? So it is it has that element, so it makes it quite valuable.
In interacting with you and getting this other idea that was just posted as well, it makes me realize that one thing that would improve this a lot is to have the first time anyway, a little template on how to ask the question. Like this is my role. This is the type of company I'm in. So you fill that out as part of the question. Tell me what your role is, what type of company you're in. If there is a baseline adoption, like are you doing Safer Scrum or just your own? That would help it give much more pointed answers or questions to ask. So I made a note here. I can train it to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's easy.
How much does it go outside of Amplio success engineering content?
I'm not
Do you
sure.
know?
No, I don't know. I'll tell you why I don't know. But I'll
Okay,
tell
I
you
just
this.
posted an image. It gave me this image. I'm wondering, is this
Put it
from
in the chat or okay, there you go.
you?
Okay, I can see it in the chat. But let me tell you about this. This is something I would like. Now, its underlying model includes a lot of things outside of Amplio. In other words, what this is built on is anything that's out in the public domain, it's built on. Yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, so the grow model, this is in there. Yeah, this will be in there. AdCar would be in there. Scarf would be in there. All that it knows. But here is something to be aware of. Not everything is in there because there's a lot of crap out there. So I have talked to it when we have discussed. Here, let me pull this back up. So there is a much deeper set. See, it responded here with no, not this one. Yeah. So here it's giving me a bit of attitude, diagnosis before prescribing. This is kind of the values and the axioms. Okay. And then there's a lot more than this, in the physics of flow book. AmpGPT and I have spent a lot of time on what are the principles, foundations of flow, and there are about a dozen principles, multitasking, economic priority, things like that. And then we talked about cognitive first principles, about how people actually learn and think, and then axioms. So this is what, if you wanted to really see what's the totality that AmpGPT is based on, it's these 13 pages. And that might not be a bad reference to give you an overview and give reference to the axioms. But here's the point. Most of these are applicable everywhere. They're just somewhat tailored to some things are tailored to knowledge. For example, bounded perception. This is just a human thing. Our perception is constrained by what we look at and what our mental model is. That's everywhere. That's not just problem stuff. So I'm sorry, I got distracted. I just thought why I came here was that what it and I have agreed to, and I do say agree because it's not like me telling it. It's like we have these conversations and it knows what my objective is, and then we figure out the best way to do it. So what it knows to do is, if things are inconsistent with this, for example, Scrum talks about process being a black box and you just inspect and adapt. That's inconsistent with a system thinking scientific approach based on rules of flow. It knows it understands that about Scrum, but it's not basing my answers on what Scrum says, because those aren't first principles. Same thing with SAFe, same thing with Cynefin. It knows what's good about Cynefin, but it doesn't throw that into the mix. And the reason is because I want its answers based on the scientific model underneath everything. And this has been the ongoing conversation for a year where we've refined this. And it's something that gets validated every time I talk to it on the computer. So I'm not sure how far it'll go, but I think it'll go further than I think it would go. And that's why I want feedback. Now, somebody who's not here today, but Casey, some of you know, who's in the ACE program, he talks about, he uses this in a lot of other domains, and he believes all this stuff can be transferred into many other things. Oh, I see we lost Kurt. I was hoping to get some feedback from him. Rick, do you have any feedback? Because you're more of an outsider of the group that's been working this, so I'm really interested in yours.
Well, I guess I'm still figuring it out, seeing its capabilities. I actually opened up a separate chat GPT without the AMP GPT just to see what it would give, and it's very different answers.
Yeah.
I was doing like
Which
a
was-
compare and
Which
contrast.
was more useful?
Well, with my brain already thinking flow, definitely the AMP GPT, but not knowing, like just thinking about an LLM that wasn't fed any um, like routes. I just wanted to know what it could do out the gate. So it was a good compare. Otherwise, you don't know exactly how, well, you still don't really know, but it gives a better like general
Well,
approach versus a tailored LLM.
well, let me ask you this. I happen to know you. I know you're a very knowledgeable coach, an expert in a lot of areas. Is it giving answers consistent with your answers, the answers you would give if somebody asked?
Ah,
In other words, if somebody asked you this question and you saw how it answered, would you answer in a as good a way, not as good a way, a better way?
well, this is definitely more thorough. It would take me a lot longer to get to this point if I ever did. So yeah, it it gets you to um, the next step much faster than just me doing it on my own. Not sure if that really answers your question,
No, it
but
does.
okay.
All right. See, this involves a different level. Say for me as a coach, there are different ways to evaluate this based on your role. As a coach, I would say that you can evaluate it based on, would it prepare you for dealing with somebody you're coaching? And it sounds like it would.
Yeah.
And as a practitioner, and this is why it's important to give the role, because I think it's used to talking to me and coaches who know what's going on to some level. But what we want to make sure of, and so far I haven't had anybody who's not a coach or at some more knowledgeable level than the average person. I haven't had any of those people use it. And it's important. Is it speaking at the right level of depth? And that's where it may also need to ask for feedback. I'm going to take a note here. It should ask for feedback on depth and too conceptual or not. Now, this is something I think it'll do okay with. I know I tend to be too conceptual and then go to the specifics, but it knows I do that and it knows that's not something I want it to copy. In fact, we've had long conversations about that. It very often rewrites my posts or my comments on things to put it the other way around, because it knows that most people like very concrete, and then you go to the abstraction underneath it. It also knows, I had this heart to heart with it the other day. I have what technically is called attention deficit disorder, but I call rapid mind movement because my mind is always buzzing. It makes a lot of connections. And I see a lot of connections, and that's a powerful thing for me. But when I explain connections that other people can't see because it's too many up front at once, that's a bad thing. So we had a conversation with that where it said, yeah, this is good that you can do that, but we want to keep it from going directly to users. And I agreed with it. I said, yeah, I'm telling you because I want you to know how I'm thinking, but I want you to know I recognize the way I think and the way we want to present that to other people are two different things. So that's part of the conversation I've been using with it. By the way, that's part of the conversation you can have with it. It will remember this conversation. This is why it's useful that it's on your account. So you can start talking to it and say, hey, while you're working in this AmpGPT mode, I would prefer you to do this, this, or this, and then it'll start doing it that way. You can train this yourself to work for you.
Yeah, Al, I got one more thought there. Since you're talking about the verbiage that you're using, I was thinking, okay, this is talking more flow centric, but when you're talking to somebody else, you'd want some type of translator in words that they understand.
Yeah. So the question is, it can do that. The question is, I mean, I know that's, excuse me, I know it can do that. The question is, how do we get it to understand that? So that's another point. So
It's
right
like
about
what
this
you
now.
see sometimes in the post. Somebody quotes an article and then they say, what this means in plain English is X, Y, and Z, right? But you have to bring it across without insulting the the audience, not implying that they are not smart enough to understand that the lingo, but just to make it more commonsensical without the
Yeah.
lingo.
Yeah. It this is the other advantage of it being anonymous, because normally if you were, say, in a classroom with somebody and you ask somebody, well, how much do you know? And then they say, now they've got their butt on the line. And if they know less than they think they know, and you talk to them at the level they said, but they don't understand it, you put them in a bad situation, because now they either have to misunderstand or admit they didn't know what they said they knew. But here, because it's one-on-one and that anonymity makes it so it can actually ask where things are. And it could say, do you want more in depth? Am I being too rudimentary for you? So I think those would be, I'm writing this down, or too rudimentary. And I think what could be good to do is not to hit you with all this up front, but in the opening dialogue, Like this would be really good. It could be something like it could say, let's interact a little bit, and then you should tell me how you like my responses. Am I being too rudimentary? Am I going too much in depth? Am I doing this? Am I doing that? And all that. So what I don't have in this that it could do, there's no question. The reason I say it can do it with no question is because I have role played this myself many times over the last several months, and I've seen it do this. So what would be good when it starts out is instead of giving this, have it give something after we chat back and forth a couple of times. I'll ask you how you want me to talk to you in terms of depth and breadth and upstream and downstream. And then it could engage on that. Or it could even say, tell me now, but otherwise do it later. Yeah, this is perfect. This is the kind of stuff I wanted to get into because I'm not, and even you all aren't, well, actually, you all are pretty much the main personas I'm going after. Not everybody needs to interact with this, but your coaches and your transition agents, they do need, and that's really who this is designed for. But there's no reason not to make it universally applicable by changing tone. And in fact, I just realized how I'm going to educate it. It'll be faster than I thought. You know what that's going to be? I'm going to take the transcript from the Read AI and upload it and say, here, this is what we said. What do you agree with? What are your thoughts? And then we'll have a conversation for 5 or 10 minutes. And then it'll say, okay, that's how I'm going to work. Isn't that amazing? I just think that's amazing. I know it's my baby and I'm excited, but I'm excited because people think my baby is prettier than I think it is. Okay, anything else? I mean, we can go, we have another 28 minutes, but do you want to try it some more? Why don't you try it some more? Let's do another 10 minutes. Let's see what happens the next time. Let's do another 10 minutes. I just love that idea. I really am. I'm just gonna give it the transcript and say, okay, a lot of good ideas here. I don't have to go through that. It'll figure it out. It's so cool. Okay, now I'm going to be off screen, but I'm in the same room. So just call out if you want me to hear anything. I'm just going to get something done while I'm just sitting here anyway.
Speaking of do it with humor, so I'm using this tool as in the frame of delivering product to a customer.
Okay.
And And I asked it to do it with humor. And I asked the question, if you've got two deliveries, how do you decide which one goes first? And it wrote back, easy. Pick the one that will make the biggest mess if you don't do it.
That's pretty cool. That's good. I like that.
That's the translation of cost of delay into how the common person speaks, right?
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
big mess.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great translator.
Yeah, see, here's what I think. There's two things being validated here. One thing being validated is the LLM's ability to integrate all of these concepts, because I didn't teach it that. Well, actually, maybe I did to some extent. What I didn't teach it were the individual things. So there are some things I did teach it, some things it wasn't directly aware of, having to do more with cognitive dynamics, the automatic interpretive reframing, but it knew about it. So I don't know I taught it much at all. It knows Fernando and all that work. But what I have pieced together that I'm not convinced it pieced together is how all these things interrelate, because that's what I've been working on for the last year, how these impact each other. And sometimes I ask it, I said, has anybody else been doing this? Like the flow, lean theory, constraint, along with learning dynamics. It says, well, there are people who've talked about them individually, but nobody's tied them together the way I've tied them together. Now, what's interesting, though, is the more I tie together with it, it starts tying things together that it hadn't seen 6 months ago. So at some level, the technique I'm using of system integration, it's learned system integration from me. But the thing is, it's these things are valid underlying concepts. And when you start seeing how they interrelate with each other, then you see things you don't see otherwise. And what it's better at than me is seeing all of those interrelationships, because there are many of them. But that's maybe the big thing I added. I added a couple things here and there. I've done some things that were unique here, some things here and here I've done. But 95, 98% I didn't touch. But it's the integration. And it's really good at that.
Hey Al, I got to drop, but it was great dropping in.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. That was good. Okay.
Yep. It's good to see everybody.
Oh, Tom, I just saw your hand was up. Go ahead.
Thanks, Rick. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just I actually used the prompt that Rick suggested. Would you be able to make a table with the common roles and corresponding common uses for this tool? And I thought, well, instead of creating a new chat with AmpGPT, I just put it in at the end of the chat where I talked about the hardware software thing and the cost of delay and everything. And to my surprise, it interpreted the prompt very differently, because it didn't refer to the tool as AmpGPT, but the tool of using cost of delay as sort of an organizing function. And so it then created this table of cost of delay as a cross-functional tool by, say, 7 or 8 different typical roles: sales, product management, hardware management, engineering leadership, executive, finance, etc. And it was yet a whole new lens through which to look at that problem. And it was completely unintended, but
Yeah.
it's similar to when you have a conversation, a serendipitous conversation, say at the water cooler, and you talk to someone else, and they, because of their background, they interpret what you say like the tool in a different way, and all of a sudden you go like, yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but that's actually quite interesting as well. Brings up a new idea, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
That would be good if you could send that to me, the table it gave and prompt that prompted that. See, this is why I think we barely touched the surface of this thing. This is what's got me both excited and impressed, is that it can do this. And I know why it can. I just, now that it's done it, I know why it can. But to be candid, I wasn't expecting this. And again, the reason is because of the foundation on which it's built. And that it has had several months of experience with me on seeing interconnections. And I have to believe, well, here's the interesting thing about this. See, it doesn't always notice the interconnections until you mention them, but once you mention them, it makes them instantly. That's been my experience with it. Like it'll talk about something and then some little slight disconnect, and then I'll say, this means this might be true. And then it would say, oh, good insight. And then it kind of expands. And then the moment you make the least connection between two things, it expands on it and gives you this huge in-depth.
So I did post, I shared the conversation that I had with ChatGPT, and that link I put in the chat as a
Okay, good.
response to a previous comment that I made about
Oh, great.
the questions that it leaves me with. So you should be able to pull that up as well.
Yeah, this is it here.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
great.
that is a table there.
You know, now this is really interesting. This is such an obvious idea that I never thought about. You know what I mean? It's like the moment it did it, it's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is so perfect, because this then gets people aligned around one concept where they can discuss different aspects of it.
This is sort of a good example of the ensemble learning and joint
Absolutely.
discovery, right?
Wow, this thing just gets better every time I talk about it or talk other people use it. Wow. Now, you know what could be really interesting? Another way to do this. Imagine you're in an organization that's got like 1,000 workers. I mean, in the development area, support or, sales, all that. And imagine you have 3 different, leaders, transformation agents, coaches, whatever. Can you see all being around the same computer, asking the question and talking about it and seeing the results? I mean, the learning would be phenomenal. I didn't envision it that way at first, but I'm starting to see it more and more, the value of that.
Yeah, there is this concept in coding where mobbing, or
Oops.
what do they call it? When like
Pair
a
programming
bunch
or mob programming?
mob programming, right? Where like 4 or 5 developers all work on one workstation at a time. And this would be sort of mob vibe coding, or
Well, mob
it's
learning, ensemble learning.
mob learning, yeah, ensemble learning. It's somewhere in that mix, yeah, where they would all share and contribute to the same prompt and dialogue and back and forth.
You know what would be really helpful, but I don't know how you would do this. It would be nice if there was like one account that could be shared by several people, so you actually have a shared thread. The problem is you can never do it simultaneously, because anytime you do it, branches it out into a separate thread.
Hmm.
So I don't know, that probably wouldn't work, but I can see accumulated learning that way. Also, it is possible if you have multiple threads to get one thread to train another thread just by copying and pasting one thread into another thread, because I've done that myself. Yeah, Susan, you look.
Also, couldn't you, if you're doing some kind of a mob programming or ensemble learning thing, have an account for the group and put things in that?
You could, but what you would have to do. Oh, well, here's what you could do. That's a great idea. So here's one way this could be. If you had an account for a company, and then everybody had their own individual thread on that account, that would keep it from splitting up into many things, but then that account would still know who you are. And that could work. I think that could work really, really well. Because you can see here, if I go down here, these are all the individual ones, but what I do is I have what I call ongoing conversations. These are just the projects. So I tend to have it broken down different types of questions I ask. And then when it comes to do with the public GPTs, I've got Amplio GPT, and then the books. I was at one time having different GPTs for the books. But you could do that. That would be really useful. So everything I've got here on my account, it knows all this stuff, and it knows it's from me. That would be interesting. the problem is that probably violates the subscription model. But I don't know that that people would care that much about it. And maybe there is a maybe there's another way to, maybe there's an enterprise subscription model that would be fine. I'll check that out
There
too.
may be, because I know that's true for a lot of tools.
Yeah, I'll write this down. This is good. Okay, any other ideas? I mean, any limitations seen, or it's just really you guys, as you get more creative? So here's what we've demonstrated today. That's pretty exciting. I did say, and I did believe, that these scenarios are intended to work together, that there's no limitation. But what you all are doing is, you're not everybody, maybe a lot of you are going beyond how I intended you to engage with it, and that works fine. And
Well, and
I think that's cool.
I took my integration problem from yesterday and restated it with me as the tester, and got a better response for the purposes of being a tester. And it I can see it really being really useful, because the problems I've had in testing roles and business analysis roles is getting the information to the right person in a form that they can consume. And I think this could help with that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think next week we have continuing the looking to the future, with these four guys, me and these other three. What I'm thinking, though, the next 2 weeks from today, 2 weeks from today, having another session like this might be.
It's a play date.
Yeah, it's like a play date. I mean, this is now the fourth session I've had with this. So we had our session yesterday morning. And then I talked to a very good, actually, he's in the AI field, a longtime friend, one of the top consultants I know, but not in the ACE program. And he loved it. And then I talked to another person who's like a certified coach, the ICF coach. He's really smart. And that was a great conversation. And then there's been some other feedback. But what's happened here, you guys use it 3 or 4 different ways.
And I'm going to try and play with it some more between now and the next time, and come up with a few other things.
Yeah, and maybe what I'll do, actually, I think what I'll do, instead of trying to control this, because I'm not really worried about what anybody does, is maybe make this book open that people can add things to it, and here's what I did, and make this kind of a shared resource for different ideas that people can just add to. Like what I had here, and we say, here's another way of doing this. I don't know if I want to control that or not. I want to do it in a way that more people will contribute to. We'll play with it. We'll see what works best.
Okay.
Okay. So tomorrow, since people I've got here are all in the ACE program, we are gonna see about how to take the improving SAFE and making it a generic approach. So we're going to talk about specifics, but also how you would generalize it to unclogging any large scale adoption. Okay, anything else? We good? Thanks so much. This is it gets better every time I interact with somebody on this. I love it. Okay, all good.
Thank you.